You're listening to the Patriot Nation Podcast.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation Podcast. As always, a proud member of the CLNS group of podcasts. Make sure you download and subscribe to all those shows to get great Patriots content all week long. But tonight here, it's the Patriot Nation Podcast, and Matt is still out, still on concussion protocol. So it is me, your boy Pat Lane here with our post-game show. Sunday night here during Sunday Night Football. This absolute blowout. Seattle is just crushing Washington right now. So let's get into it. Patriots hold on, win a nail biter today against a Falcons team that is very hot and cold. And I guess the place that I want to start with Atlanta is that their good players are so good. Drake London. I don't know if Drake London is one of the best receivers in the league, but he's certainly one of the best contested catch receivers in the league. You get down near the red zone, and Drake London is just impossible to stop. And you have Marcus Jones one-on-one against him multiple times. You're going to lose that battle 10 times out of 10. That happened today, unfortunately. He also had a touchdown catch over Carlton Davis as well. I didn't think Davis had great coverage on that, but nevertheless, doesn't matter. He had a huge day, seven receptions, over 100 yards, 3 touchdowns. Really was their only super impactful player. John Robinson is a phenomenal talent. We've seen it. We know it. He's incredible. Numbers-wise, didn't have a huge day, right? Had under 50 yards rushing and had, I believe, 8 catches, 8 catches, 50 yards. So, he didn't have any huge big plays or anything like that from Bijan today, but he did make an outrageous one-handed catch. I believe in that last, I'm pretty sure it was on that last drive, that potential game-tying drive where, of course, in this case, Parker Romo misses the extra point. We'll get into that. But overall, Atlanta is and they've spent these high draft picks, right? They drafted Robinson in the top 10. They drafted London, I think, number 5 overall. They drafted Kyle Pitts, number 4 overall, I believe it was. So they've spent these draft picks on these guys who are uber talented. And you see Pitts, even with the talent. Penix, I don't know if he's the guy or not. I'll tell you, he can rear back and sling it when he has to. He was throwing some fastballs in there, but at other times I felt like he wasn't seeing the field great. Again, he didn't really he threw 14 times to Drake London. He threw 10 times to Bijan Robinson. He threw 7 times to Kyle Pitts, twice to Darnell Mooney, and once to David Sills, whoever that is. And that was it. 34 pass attempts to basically 5 guys, right? And 32 of those 34, or 31 of those 34 went to 3 guys. So really, he's using just 3 guys, and they're all very talented guys. Don't get me wrong. I didn't really understand the offense, and I thought they had a little bit of success with Robinson running the ball. They didn't stick with it. The Patriots are fantastic against the run and have been fantastic against the run all year long. 9th straight game where they didn't allow the starting running back to rush for 50 yards, which is pretty incredible. And so they just continuously do that. But, it really was surprising to me that they played that way. I'm also surprised by the Patriots. I thought they would play a lot more man press coverage. I know Christian Gonzalez obviously eventually went out, but he was in most of the game. And they were playing like this off-zone weird coverage where it didn't make sense to me. Let him and Carlton Davis one-on-one match up with those guys outside. I mean, I don't know why they didn't do that. So, anyways, it was kind of a bizarre situation. On the Patriots side, on the Patriots side of it, because this is a Patriots podcast, we want to talk about the Patriots. On the Patriots side of it, that first half was incredible. Drake May was awesome. Drake May was seeing guys hitting the open receivers. Guys were getting open. That first drive, McDaniels was in his bag on that first drive, right? He just, when you talk about, what do you want to see? A 10-play, 75-yard drive where they start by running the ball 3 times in a row. They hit Trayvon Henderson outside for 11 yards after that, right? And then Drake May scrambles for 12 yards. He kind of talked about that in the post game, talking about maybe I shouldn't be going back across, trying to cut back and stuff like that. But I thought you hit Trayvon Henderson for another 19-yard gain. Then eventually you hit DeMar Douglas out of the backfield, and that play out of the backfield was a great play. You got Pop in the backfield, and he's lined up on what's essentially an edge rusher, an outside linebacker, I guess, but like he can't stick with a wide receiver down the sideline. It's an easy touchdown for the Patriots, and that comes back to scheme for McDaniels. That was a scheme drive where they're driving down the field, and we're watching that game thinking, my goodness, this team is. When they really get going, this team is outrageous. And so, this is what they have. And then, the Patriots go 3 and out the next drive. The Falcons score a touchdown, and the Patriots go on another extended drive, and ended up scoring another touchdown. And that's really when you felt like, okay, the Patriots can really, in this point, and the Detroit Lions scores a touchdown, the Patriots can really, in this point, make some headway, right? And they score another touchdown to go up 21-7, and you're thinking this game's over. Like, this game's over, right? Falcons get the ball back, they turn it over on downs. Patriots get a nice stop on 4th down. Which, by the way, the Falcons were 1 for 10 on 3rd down in this game. 1 for 10, the Falcons. Meanwhile, the Patriots were 8 for 12. It's an incredible rate. The fact they only won this game by 1. And they were 8 for 12 on 3rd down, where Atlanta was 1 for 10 on 3rd down. It's crazy they only won by 1. But this is what happens, right? 4th and 2, they throw in a completion, really nice play to break up the pass to Drake London. And then the Patriots are moving the ball again, right? They're at the Atlanta 38-yard line. They're basically in field goal range. They're not quite in field goal range, but they're right on the outskirts of field goal range. And on Rennie and Morgan Moses screw up a stunt, and a guy comes right up the middle. I mean, right up the middle. Right? I believe it was Walker, comes right up the middle. And all he has to do, all Drake has to do is just take the sack. Just live to fight another day. And instead, he tries to make a move on him, or he tries to shake him in some way. Strip sack, guy recovers it. Will Campbell chases him down and tackles him before he gets to the end zone. But then Drake London scores a touchdown, and now it's 21-14 at the half. Instead of 21-7, even if you take a sack and don't score a touchdown there, fine. It's still 21-7, and you get the ball to start the second half, right? So of course you're walking away saying we left some points on the table there, but at least you're not turning it into 7 for the other team. That's just inexcusable. It was an awful play by May. He saw the guy coming. It was right in his face. He saw the guy coming, and he just tried to do too much. And this is when May struggles and makes mistakes. It's when he's trying to do too much. When he's running with the football, when he, against the Steelers, is trying to keep the play alive and goes, is climbing the pocket and trying to shovel it out of there and get strip sacked. It's just, you don't need to do that. Sometimes you just take the sack. And that's something that he was cognizant of, that he mentioned after the game, that he, is aware of and knows that he has to fix. And it's just something for me, I look at it and just say, like, man, like, this is something that just can't happen. It just can't happen. And, they were able to get away with it this game. And we'll kind of talk about why, but they were able to get away with this game. But that's something that cannot happen, unfortunately. So, and Jack mentioned it here, Tonga at fullback was just awesome. And I guess maybe he wasn't technically at fullback. He lined up as a wing back or whatever and went in motion. I don't care. It was awesome. Tonga as the lead blocker for him, and you watch that play, and he kind of doubles it with the center, and the linebacker fills in the hole, and the linebacker's like, yeah, I'm going to fill it in the B gap over here. I'm not going to mess with that. so he does that. It was great, and that's what you want to see. I love that. It's something that Belichick did early on. something that Belichick did early on in his Patriots career where he would bring guys out, he'd bring defensive linemen out as his fullbacks, right? Richard Seymour did it a few times. Of course, Dan Klecko did it a bunch of times as well. It's fun. That's fun. That's what I want to see. And so, I was happy to see that. So, we'll see. We'll see moving forward. But I think Tonga makes a lot of sense. He's certainly a lot better lead blocker than Jack Westover, who's fine, but, certainly isn't great. So, excuse me. Pat Stats does mention it here. The offensive line's become an issue. The blocking, the run blocking in particular, certainly up the middle. The run blocking up the middle is just it's not there. It's non-existent. You can't do it. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they can't, or they've shown an inability to move guys out of the way, to move guys off their spot. They make the block. They're blocking the guy, but they're not moving him. They're not creating those lanes and holes. And unfortunately, that's really kind of where you're at right now. And that's got to change. It's got to change because, that can't continue to be the case. I think you saw what it looked like when it was bad in that second half. The second half was really bad. And the Patriots drive down, have a 15-play, 41-yard drive that takes 8.5 minutes to start the second half. I mean, a 15-play, 41-yard drive, that's hard to do. But they kick the field goal to go up 10. They're 24-14, I'm sorry. The next drive, 2 plays, 0 yards, interception. The drive after that. Now, then the Falcons kick the field goal and make it 24-17. Next drive after that, 8 plays, 31 yards, punt. Falcons score again to make it 24-23. Then the next play, the next possession, 3 plays, 4 yards, 1:04 off the clock. I hated this. I hated this drive because the Patriots needed something, and I know that they have the lead. There's 4 minutes left. You're thinking, let's try to kill the clock. I get that. There's 4.5 minutes left. There's tons of time left. You gotta make something. You gotta make something happen, and they didn't, and that was frustrating to me. And then you're able to stop Atlanta. Thank God, the defense steps up and stops Atlanta. They end up. Penix ends up getting called for intentional grounding. The Falcons were complaining about, that someone was clapping before the snap or something like that, and maybe Jalen Hawkins was clapping before the snap. Jalen Hawkins is 10 yards downfield. Even if he's clapping, he's 10 yards away from the line of scrimmage. It looked like he was communicating with the defense. I didn't see anyone else close to the line of scrimmage clapping or simulating. I mean, who knows if they're yelling? I don't know, but I didn't see anyone else clapping, and it looks like Hawkins is trying to get the attention of the other guys on defense. So that's whatever. That to me was a bizarre, thing that they were complaining about after the game, but it is what it is. So then now it's 3rd and 20, and he throws an incomplete pass, down the sideline, and they have to punt. And the Patriots have that one final drive. It's a 5-play, 18-play drive, 18-yard drive. I'm sorry. And really the big play there is the Hunter Henry for 17 yards, right? Which ices the game. And then, of course, May has to take 2 knees. So it's fine. It's minus 2 yards. But in the second half, after that first drive, my point here is they were completely unable to move the ball, right? Completely unable to move the ball. And meanwhile, while they're unable to move the ball, the Falcons go down and score twice. And it becomes this type of situation where it's like when May wasn't good in the second half, which he wasn't. I believe I can pull up the numbers for you in the second half outside of that first drive. Obviously, the first drive was the first drive. Outside of that first drive, he was 2 for 7 passing with an interception. That's just not going to get it done. It's not going to get it done. And again, one of those passes was to Hunter Henry, ices the game. That's great, but it's not good. And Jack actually mentioned it here too. And one of the things we'll talk about, Keyshawn Boutte got hurt, and that definitely slowed their offense down. Second half looked like last year's team. You're not wrong about that. So, but yeah, Booty getting hurt was not good, and that that's tough. So, and Pat Stats, by the way, does mention it that Drake May is the most sacked quarterback in the league. Some of those sacks are on him, but not all of them. Not all of them. And a lot of times, I will say that he's going out about. I think I don't know the exact numbers on it, but at some point they were talking about it before this game, and May was like had been sacked like the third most times in the NFL, but they had given up like the 15th most yards on sacks in the NFL. So he was, going out of bounds 1 yard downfield, right? And so or 1 yard in the backfield or something that was technically considered a sack. So, it's one of those things where, they're not letting up instant pressure right away, but there's too many times where he's holding onto the ball, and no one's open yet, right? Or, there's a guy in his face right away, or, there's a blown stunt, and that's happened multiple times where the stunt gets blown, and it's like, man, you got to be able to figure that out. So I'm hoping the offensive line can figure some things out. I know there's been a lot of talk about Jackson Powers-Johnson being a guy the Patriots would target. There's a possibility that would happen. I don't necessarily think that's likely, but there's certainly a possibility that can happen. If the Patriots feel like they need some help at their offensive line. I just feel like, for me, I'm not necessarily replacing anyone right now unless they look at it and think Garrett Bradbury can't do it. If they look at Bradbury and think he can't do it, by the way, I think he was banged up in this game, going into this game, and it looked like he got banged up again and just kept fighting through it. If they think Powers Johnson is a guy that can step in and play center for them right off the bat, fine. That's fine, I guess, if you want. But I don't know what you're going to give up to get him. He was a second-round pick last year. Unless the Raiders are like, nah, this guy stinks, we don't want him anymore, I think they're going to want to hold on to him. The guy they drafted in the second round last year. So I don't know. We'll see. And he's starting for them, right? It's not like Jalen Polk, we drafted in the second round last year. He stinks. Couldn't get on the field, right? So it was just, I don't think it's going to happen. It could, but I don't think it's going to happen. So we'll see. I'm not sure. Right now, my answer about the offensive line is I don't want to touch it. I don't want to touch it. I think Jarrett Wilson has a lot of potential moving forward. I don't necessarily like Ben Brown's he's not bad. He's just not. Is he a huge upgrade over Jarrett Wilson at left guard? I just don't believe that. I just don't believe that. And so, again, maybe there's guys out there that, and Pat Sass mentioned Aaron Brewer, like, maybe there's guys out there the Patriots feel like they can bring in, but I don't know. For right now, I just feel like I'm okay with them sticking with the five guys they have right now, because continuity is something that matters, I think, especially in the offensive line, and you kind of hope that those guys can figure it out. But it definitely has to get better. And the hope is that it will get better. Yeah. Also, Pop Douglas, monster game from Pop Douglas, had a huge game, 4 catches, 100 yards, said after the game his uncle, unfortunately, tragically was shot and killed last night. Just sad, right? Real sad, unfortunately. And, and Pop kind of said that he was with him today, which I thought was really nice. And, it was great to see him doing so well. And I know he struggled a lot at the beginning of the season, and there were a lot of people complaining about Pop Douglas. You hear Vrabel talk about him, and you hear Vrabel talk about the way that he plays football. And I think that they like a lot of the things that he brings to the table. He's not a perfect player. Doesn't have a huge frame. Sometimes it's hard to hit him, especially on some of those passes. I would have loved to have seen, there was one play where he was coming across the middle and May threw it over his head, and it kind of looked like May was expecting him to take that route deeper, and he didn't. So they've miscommunicated on some of those things, but I'm happy to see him doing so well. He seems to be a guy that the team likes, that Vrabel obviously likes, and he seems to be really, really hardworking and putting as much as he can into this team, which is great. I like to see that. So Kyle Williams, on the other hand, I don't know what the deal is with Kyle Williams. He runs a slant route, or maybe it was an in. I thought it was a slant, but Chad Matt after the game, he was saying that he thought it was an in. But either way, Drake throws behind him again, and it was just kind of like, is he not deep enough? And that's why he was too far. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure if he was supposed to be deeper, and that's why the throw was behind him. I'm not sure exactly what the deal was on that. So I just feel like Kyle Williams needs to get on the same page with Drake May. If Kayshon Boutte is going to be out for some extended period of time, with that hamstring injury, if he's going to miss time, I don't think you can trust Kyle Williams out there right now. I just don't think you can do that. And if you can't trust Kyle Williams out there, maybe you feel okay about Mac Hollins, but if you don't feel good about Mac Hollins in that spot, you're going to have to trade for a guy. Now, maybe it's a depth piece. Maybe it's a guy that's not, you're not trading for Jalen Waddle or something like that, but you're going to have to trade for a guy. And, it's not great. It's not great from Kyle Williams. So I'm hoping he can figure things out. And Nelson points it out. Like, it's the same situation that Pop and May seem to have kind of early in the season. And he's not wrong about that. But it's week 9. Kyle Williams has been out there for some snaps. Like, you would think that they wouldn't still be having this issue. So, that's concerning to me because it's still happening. It's not that it's happening. It's that it's still happening. That's what I don't like. And so, we'll see, but I just don't know how you can trust Kyle Williams unless you feel like these next few games, let's give him a chance these next few games, and then he'll be ready for, playoffs maybe. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about trusting Kyle Williams right now. So, but I guess that's just me. We'll see what happens there. So, let's take a quick break. We'll take a quick break to do an ad read, and then we'll come back and talk about the rest of this game here. Get into the defense a little bit and some special teams. But this ad, of course, is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Prize Picks is the only place that offers stacks, which means you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. Do you want to pick Drake May for more on his passing yards and rushing yards and touchdowns? You can do that in your same lineup only on Prize Picks. You can also follow Prize Picks players directly on the app and copy their lineups in one click. Whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or just someone whose picture you like, hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed on Prize Picks. My lineup this week was pretty good. I went for Jonathan Taylor. See, I made the mistake. I felt good about McCaffrey last week. Picked him for more on the yards last week. Jonathan Taylor goes off. McCaffrey didn't. So what did I do this week? I went with Jonathan Taylor. McCaffrey goes up. Jonathan Taylor doesn't. It's just the way it goes, unfortunately. But nevertheless, it's you stay with it. Stick with it. I've been on a little bit of a streak. Well, maybe not a streak, I guess, but I've been doing well this year. So a lot better than I was last year, that's for sure. So anyways, with Prize Picks, you're going to download the Prize Picks app. You're going to put in the promo code CLNS, and you're going to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Oh, yeah, not great. Yep, Luke McCaffrey potentially broke his collarbone real early in the season, too. So I'm not sure. Listen, if you want to, and Nelson, mentions Boutte's out, and so there's more reps for Williams and Chisholm. If you feel like, you want to give opportunities to Williams and Chisholm, that's fine. I don't think Boutte's going to be out long term. I think if Boutte was going to be out, 6 weeks, I don't know. But if Boutte's going to be out 6 weeks or so, then I would be really worried about it. If Boutte's going to be out a week or two, that's a different story. I'm not as worried about it. I'm certainly not giving up big assets to get a guy. Maybe someone's looking to move on from. We'll see. But But anyways, all right. Defensively, I thought the Patriots played pretty well. I thought Gonzo was good. I don't love some of the press coverage. I just feel like, again, like you have Christian Gonzalez, right? And you have Carlton Davis. Play that man-to-man coverage. Just play cat coverage and say, all right, go cover this guy. I feel like they can do that. So, especially in this game where I felt like, and maybe they were worried about Kyle Pitts. I think they were a little bit worried about Kyle Pitts and about the problems that Kyle Pitts presented. And if Pitts is presenting issues, they may have looked at it and said, yeah, no, we can't. We just, we can't go one-on-one because Pitts will smoke us. If that's what they're worried about, I guess that's fine. But like, it really didn't work out. You're playing off coverage that much. I don't love the way Gonzalez plays his off coverage. He just kind of plays back a little too far. So I don't know. Also, Christian Ellis went down with an injury. Linebacker might be a spot where they're looking for another guy, a coverage linebacker. 618 Racing says, looking for a guy that can cover a tight end. Teachers can't cover a tight end. It's brutal. And so, those guys aren't growing trees necessarily, but if someone's looking to move on from someone, that could be something that the Patriots look into. I don't know. We'll see. I also think, and I don't know, maybe that guy is to Ernest Johnson and he just hasn't been here long enough, but I think they just need a kick returner. I just hate what we get from Efton Chisholm back there. I just hate it. And so, yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it. So, past as mentions Amani Hooker. I like that idea. He can come in and cover. Now I know that he's a safety, but that I'm okay with that. So, and even like Micah Fitzpatrick, there's been some smoke about his name and whatnot. Could he come in and help you out as well with the back end of your defense? I think honestly anyone there is going to help out, especially if Christian Ellis is hurt. We just need more bodies that can play kind of that, Fitzpatrick is at this point in his career is a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage as far as, instead of playing deep safety, he's playing up a little bit more. So, we'll see. But anyways, I want to talk about special teams. Over the summer, I just want to tell you, over the summer, Andy Borregales was going against Parker Romo. And there was conversation about Patriots got to keep Parker Romo, and he's the guy that's winning the battle, and blah, 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 and how are you going to give it to him, and so on and so forth, and this and that, and everything else. And, look, I'm not saying Parker Romo stinks. I'm not saying that. Okay, he's 11-14 on field goals for the year. He's been fine. But I just thought that it was a little bit of an exclamation point for the Patriots. A little bit of an exclamation point for the Patriots. When your rookie kicker hasn't missed a kick since week 2, and the guy that you cut to keep him misses the extra point that would have tied the game. The Patriots lucked out with that too, by the way, because they were in trouble. They were in big trouble. If Atlanta had tied that game, I think the Patriots would have lost, but they didn't, so it didn't matter. But I thought the Patriots would have lost that game if they had if he had hit that extra point. So it was a big miss. Obviously, the Patriots, benefited greatly from it, and we just take it and kind of walk away and say, thanks Parker for the win, as Nelson says. Thank you Parker for the win. But I think what you've seen from them have been pretty good. I thought Behringer, who had obviously that horrendous 15-yard punt, had 3 really nice punts, 2 of them inside the 20-yard line. And so, you look at that and say, all right, like, I'm happy with what we saw from him today. I thought from a special teams perspective, they played pretty well. They didn't really allow any long kickoffs. Again, Chisholm's just not the guy. He's not. I'm sorry. He's just not the guy. And so, I don't love it. So I do think too, my guy's Marcus Jones, as you can see, we talked about him on the other day with Murph. Got his big contract extension this week. He's just not. You can't ask him to cover Drake London. You just can't do that. And I know that, there's some switch coverage and there's this and there's this and there's this. No. The second touchdown, he was one-on-one with him the whole play. It wasn't like they switched because this guy. No, he was one-on-one with him the whole play. That's inexcusable. He cannot be. You cannot put your 5'8" corner one-on-one against a 6'5" receiver that's great at contested catches. You just can't do that. I'm sorry, but you can't do that. And so that's one of those things where, like, that's a coaching thing. Marcus had great coverage. He was draped all over him, right? And it just you can't allow that to be the guy that beats you in the end zone, right? And again, sometimes you got to make some great catches. He made a great catch against Carlton Davis, right? A great one-handed catch on the sideline against Carlton Davis, and you know he those two catches against Marcus Jones were fantastic catches. He had an unbelievable catch over Christian Gonzalez, right? I'm not saying that he doesn't catch those passes if Christian Gonzalez is in his face. What I'm saying is that you better make sure it is Christian Gonzalez in his face and not a guy like Marcus Jones. It just doesn't make sense to do that, you know? So for me, at least, that's a coaching thing. That's something the coaches need to figure out. And so, you know, hopefully they will figure that out moving forward, because that's just something that can't happen. That can't happen. So I was happy to see Trayvon Henderson played decently well today. He wasn't great by any means, but they were trying to get him the ball in space. They were trying to give him the ball outside a little bit more, which I thought was good. Terrell Jennings ran pretty hard. First career touchdown, which is pretty cool. But, you know, overall, it was just, you know, it was fine. He was fine. But it was not like I would still like them to see. I'd like to see them maybe trade for a depth running back. You know, someone that is, I don't know, someone that's going to be your third running back or something like that. Nothing crazy, but just another guy that can take some reps for you, especially if Ramondre. I don't know what that looks like. I'm not sure what that injury was. I'm not sure if he's got a sprained toe. I'm not sure he's got a turf toe. I don't know what it is. If he's going to be out, you know, any extended period of time, that's a position that I think they really have to target by Tuesday. So, but yeah, I didn't, you know, I wasn't, the offensive line was fine, but not great, but not terrible, is what I thought, at least. But yeah, those mental mistakes, to me are what kills them. I thought the only way they could lose this game is if they shot themselves in the foot, turned the ball over, and made mental mistakes. And they turned the ball over twice and made, you know, not a ton of mental mistakes, but like enough. Like the second interception is just, Hunter Henry, you're wide open. Don't run away from the spot where you're wide open. Sit down in the spot where you're wide open, right? And Hunter Henry hasn't made a lot of mistakes like that. And so, you know, it's one of those things where it's just a bad miscommunication and is what it is. You just deal with that sometimes, right? You know, Drake May, again, like I said, has that strip sack where you just like, it's inexcusable. Can't happen. And it happens, unfortunately. You know, and I think Pop may have been in the wrong spot a few times. I think Kyle Williams may have been in the wrong spot once or twice. And so it's just some of those mental mistakes where you're just like, you'd like to see them make a play and they don't. And, you know, hopefully they get those things figured out. But the nice thing is that you're winning these games and learning from them. Instead of learning from losses, you're learning from wins. And I think that that's a huge thing. And look, this is a game, I think, for me at least, this is a game where the Patriots, and as I said, the Patriots haven't won many games the last few years, right? But the Patriots, they are a team that needs to learn how to win these ugly games. And that's exactly what they did. They learned how to win these. They won a game that was an ugly game out there, especially in the second half. They just held on and survived and won. They got a little bit of luck because Parker Rowell missed the extra point, and who knows what happens if he doesn't, right? But they may have gotten a little bit of luck, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they win an ugly game, and that's what you're looking for. And so hopefully moving forward, you fix some of the issues that they had. I think this coaching staff has done a really nice job at identifying some of the mistakes the Patriots have made, specific players in general, Drake May, Pop Douglas, you know, guys that have made mistakes. Where have they made mistakes? What have they done wrong? And how can we help them fix it? I think they've done a really nice job in doing that. And so, hopefully they continue to do that. As far as trade targets, Jack's thrown a few names. Pat Stat's thrown a few names as well. Damian Pierce is a guy that's interesting, played in Houston, played really well his rookie year, and has sucked ever since. Been a healthy scratch multiple weeks in a row. Just kind of feels like if you throw them, a 7th round pick by itself, well, you don't have a 7th round pick, but if you throw them a 7th round pick in 2027, you might be able to get Damian Pierce, right? Like he's a guy that they almost feel like they're going to cut. Yeah, I don't know. So Dylan Lobby's a guy, UNH, interesting player, but again, short, slight, small guy. Jerome Ford is an interesting name that Jack threw out there. So I think there are guys that are out there for sure. What I'm really curious to see is how aggressive do the Patriots get. They're 7-2. Okay, they're 7-2. They have 2 games against the Jets left. They have a game against the Dolphins left. You have to think they win those 3 games. Now, again, maybe they don't. Maybe you look at it and say, well, they're definitely not going to win those games. It's not a definite. Maybe not. But you get at the Buccaneers, tough game. Home against the Jets on a Thursday night, you should win that game. Maybe you should. I'm sorry. You should win that game. At the Bengals, the Bengals are the first team in the history of the NFL to score 38-plus points in back-to-back games and go 0-2 in both those games. So the Bengals have an awesome offense, passing offense. They're incredible. Defense is horrendous. So I expect the Patriots to at least compete in that game, potentially win. Giants on Monday night the next week, you should win that game. Then you have your bye. Then you finish with Bills at home, in Baltimore against the Ravens, and then at the Jets and home against the Dolphins to end the season. That Dolphins game should be a win. That Jets game should be a win. Even if you lose the rest of the games, you finish the season 10-7. You're in the playoffs, right? I expect them to win the 2 Jets games, to win the Dolphins game, and to win the Bengals and Giants games. That puts them at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12 wins. It's 12-5 team. I think that's reasonable for right now. If you had told me 12-5 in the offseason, I would have said you're nuts. I was screaming 8 wins, right? But to me, that's 12 wins. Maybe they're going to pull something out against Tampa or against Buffalo or against the Ravens, and now you're up to 13-4, which is insane, right? That's insane to even think that they could get to that point. But regardless, for me, I look at it and just think the Patriots in this scenario, where they're at right now, they should be aggressive at the trade deadline. They should get a guy that can help them this year. You have an opportunity this year to go out and, Washington's a great example. And I'm going to talk about why Washington is a great example. Because Washington's a great example because they made it to the NFC Championship game last year, right? No one expected that. Nobody expected that. But they made it to the NFC Championship game last year. And they were able to compete right away, which is great. On the flip side of that, they've dealt with some injuries, specifically with their quarterback. They're 3-5, about to go to 3-6. They're on the outside looking in of the NFC playoff picture. I have a hard time believing with their schedule the rest of the way through. They play the Lions, they play the Broncos, they play the Vikings, they play the Eagles twice, and they play the Cowboys. I think there's a very, very small chance they make the playoffs this year. They went all in this offseason. Spent a ton of money, brought in a bunch of guys, didn't work. So they were in the NFC Championship game last year, and again, Jaden being hurt throws a wrench into everything. It changes everything about the team, right? But how do you get to a situation where you prevent yourself, you give yourself the best opportunity to repeat what Washington did last year and compete in the playoffs, right? But do your best to also set yourself up for success next year. And I think that, that makes a huge difference. So I'm not trading a first-round draft pick to go get someone. I really don't want to trade a second-round draft pick to go get someone. Could I trade a third-round pick to go get someone like a Jalen Phillips, to get someone that I think can make a real impact right away, day one? I do think so. Right? And Pat Sats mentioned it. Like, Gonzo, May, and Campbell on their rookie contracts, right? Gonzo probably only for one more year, but I just think that you have to look at what the Patriots have and say, what can we add to this without destroying what we're looking at in the future, right? I'm not giving up a first-round pick for A.J. Brown. I'm not trading a first-round pick for Jalen Waddle. I'm not doing those things. But again, if you're going to tell me I can trade a third-round pick and improve this defense and improve this pass rush that has 2 sacks the last 2 games, yep, I'm in on that. We can get some pressure at these guys, and all of a sudden our edge rushers look a heck of a lot more daunting. Right? Caleb Von Chasen had a really nice first half, kind of disappeared after that, but had a really nice first half. But he can't be your number one. To me, if he's your number one edge rushing, guy, I don't know. I don't see it. So, at least as far as he's not a dominant pass rusher. He's a good pass rusher. He's not a dominant pass rusher or anything like that. So, that's not the guy. That's not the guy that I'm looking at. So, anyways, we'll see if they can trade a guy. If they can trade a third-round pick for a guy like that, I would love that. But I also think too that those guys don't grow on trees. The NFL understands that those are really good players, and so they're not just going to give one of those guys up for nothing. So is that going to be enough to get a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau, who Murph mentioned last week or on Thursday? Murph mentioned him. Jalen Phillips, even Bradley Chubb, who plays for the Dolphins as well, right? I think the Dolphins. I think part of the reason the Dolphins let go of Chris Grier is because they said, we're getting rid of everyone. You're either on board with that or you're not. Chris Grier said, well, I'm not on board with that. And they said, well, see you later, buddy. We're fire sale here. And maybe they want to rebuild it with Mike McDaniel. I think that's a mistake, but whatever. Maybe they want to rebuild it with Mike McDaniel anyways. And I guess they can if they want. But it'd be fine with me, frankly. But nevertheless, so I think that, you can attack some of those guys. You can, and look, see what the price is for Jalen Waddle. It's going to be more than a first-round pick, I would imagine. But just see. Why not? If you're on the phone with them anyways. But I think defense should be the spot. I'm looking for an edge rusher. I'm looking for a coverage linebacker or safety, one or the other. And I think interior depth on the offensive line would be helpful too. I think center guard depth on the offensive line could be helpful. And listen, if you're willing to trade, if the Raiders are saying, this guy's a cancer in our locker room, we don't like him, and Powers Johnson's the guy that just doesn't fit with what we're looking at, sure. Then make a trade and pick that guy up if you think he can start at center for you. Fine. But, I don't know if you want to, I don't know if that's what you want to go after right now. Especially in this, in this offense where you need the center to make calls and to make plays. I don't know if I'd be willing to do that yet, but we'll see. So, anyways, it's gonna be a lot to see what happens on Tuesday. Certainly could start happening as early as tomorrow. You never know. So, again, there's only 2 teams playing tomorrow night, right? It's Arizona and Dallas. I don't think those guys are trading much. So, everyone else can make trades starting tomorrow, but they won't. Theoretically can make trades now, but we could certainly see some trades happen tomorrow. Certainly Tuesday, it feels like there's going to be some motion happening. Patriots traded guys away last week, and I think that those are the moves they wanted to make to get rid of those 2 guys. And I think they did that. Primarily because they want to focus on making trades for guys to come in on Tuesday. They just said, let's get rid of these guys now, and we'll go from there. So, one other thing I got to shout out, and Pat Sass says this too. Mel Williams is just absolutely destroying people. Harold Landry's been not very good since the beginning of the year. Good again. The front seven's been awesome against the run. Harold Landry's as advertised against the run. He's been great. But Noah Williams is just destroying people. Him and Barmore have been phenomenal, like absolutely phenomenal in the middle. You just got to be able to get some real edge rushing. And I think that's something that they're definitely lacking. So hopefully they can pick someone up at the deadline that can make some impact on there, but we'll see. So anyways, that's going to do it for me. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I appreciate you coming. Oh, one other thing. I met an interesting cat. One of the guys that you would argue, right? You could argue is one of the most interesting men in the world. The guy's name was Nate. Interesting dude. And he's the guy that was he's on the marathon. He seems to go viral around the marathon every year. But he was holding the 28-3 sign during the Boston Marathon. Went super viral on like Barstool was on all of these places and whatnot. And he was the guy holding that sign. He was holding up a Will Smith sign right after Will Smith got slapped by Chris Rock. Or I'm sorry, Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. Seems to go viral all the time around there. So, anyways, it was just he was an interesting guy, and pretty cool. Met him at the bubble. We had a little had a catered tailgate in the bubble, put on by the Patriots today, which was kind of cool. So that was fun being in there. Everything was free. That was nice. So, anyways, that's going to do it for me. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming through. Chat, as always, coming through. We appreciate you guys. By the way, Jack's asking about if Barmore was benched again today. I don't believe he was. I don't think he was, at least. So there were times where him and Williams were out, which was strange to me. But, I'm not sure. I think we've seen some good things from Joshua Farmer, which is really good. I'm happy with what I've seen with Joshua Farmer this year. He's definitely coming into his own for sure, which is nice to see. But yeah, it was, you always want to see one of those guys out there on the field because they're so good. So we'll see. So anyways, that does it for me. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll be back Thursday night, probably. Maybe Tuesday night. If something crazy happens on Tuesday, who knows? We'll see. But we'll be back some point this week talking about next week's game in Tampa Bay. So thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other and go Pats.